Hi friends, welcome to Sada Learning Hub. You are with me, Shadashirao. Today's session we are going to learn servlet flow. Whenever we are raising a request to the whenever we are raising a request on the browser, how the request is reached to the server and how the request is reached to the servlet, how the business logic will be executed and how it returns the response. Now I can explain all these things in the servlet flow. Now see here, this is the flow of the servlet. Now here I am showing this is the browser. Whenever we are raising a request to the web container, the init method will be called. After init method, mm, whatever the initializations will be init method will be called. In this init method, whatever the initializations are there, all the initializations are will be injected into our servlet container, servlet object. After completion of the init method, it may be a constructor, it going to call the service method. The service method, it takes the two parameters, the servlet request and the response. After completion of the execution of the business logic in the service method of a servlet, it can be written response to the web container. The web container is returning response to the browser. In this request and response, how the objects will be created, how the request responses will be created, now I can explain the all those things. When a client, see here, this is the browser. Browser is nothing but the client. When a client makes a request to the servlet, then a request first reaches to the server. Whenever we are raising a request to the server, whenever you are raising request to a particular application, the first it reaches to the server. After reaching to the server, see here, after reaching to the server, the request is reaching to the server. A server transfers a client request to the web container, because a web container is a mandatory between a server and the servlet container. And this is the server. In this server, it may be run a multiple applications at a time. In the server, we can deploy a multiple applications at a time. Whenever we are raising a request, the whenever you are raising a request, the request is reached to the server. The server checks what application it can be requested. It can be routed to the that particular web container. It sends the request to the particular web container. See here, this is the browser, nothing but a client application. Now I am raising a request to the particular web application. It reaches to the server. After reaching to the server is redirected to a request to a particular web container. And after that, a container creates a request object. See here, now my request is reached to the web container. After reaching to the web container, my request is creating a one request object and also a one response object and one thread object for a given request. Now whenever we are raising a request from the browser or it may be a client application, the web container creates a one request object and also a one response object and also a one thread object. After creating the request response and the thread object, it can be called to the business logic. A thread calls or invokes the service method of a servlet by passing request and response object to the parameters. See here, after creating a request response and thread objects, the thread is invokes the service method of the servlet. Sorry, here is the service method. I'm writing the mistake at here. Now it calls the service method. The service method takes the request and response object. Whatever the here web container is created request and response object, that request response object is forwarded to the service method. In this service method, it takes the two parameters. The first one is the request object and the second one is the response object. After that, the business logic is implemented in the service method will be executed. Whatever the business logic will be executed in the service method, the business logic will be executed into the service method. A web container collects the response object from the service method of the request. See here, After completion of the business logic, the web container receives the response from the business logic. After service method, it receives the response from the business logic. Next, a web container prepares a web page for the servlet response, and then the web page will be given it to the server. After completion of this, after receiving the response from the service method, the web container creates a web page and send it to the server. See here, it creates the response, creates the web page and send it to the server. After sending to the server, finally the web page will be transferred to the response back to the browser by the server. Whenever after completion of this creating the response to send it to the server send it into the client application. It may be a browser or anything. After the response is generated, the browser will be the to the browser, a web container removes the request and response object from the server. See here, after sending response to the browser, the web container automatically removes the request, response, and the thread objects from the container. See here, for each request given in a servlet, container creates a pairs of a request and response object for the thread. Now, explain briefly once again. See here, this is the client application. It may be a browser or anything. Whenever we are raising a request to the web application, it send to the server. A server contains a any number of many number of web applications run in the many number of applications. Whenever raising a request to the web application, it can be sent it to the server. After reaching to the server will be check the request which server need to route. After checking, the request is routed to the particular web container. The web container creates, after getting the request, the web container creates a request and response objects and creates a thread object. The After completion of the creating the request response objects, the thread will be called service method of a particular servlet. It takes the request and response object. After getting the after invoking the service method, in the service method, it will be executed a business logic, and it returns the response to the web container. The web container receives the response and prepares the web page and send it back to the server. The server will be send it to the browser. After completion of all this process, the web container deletes the request response and the thread objects from the container. In this way, for each request gives to a servlet, container creates a pair of request objects and the threads. Next, I'm going to discuss about what is the servlet configuration. See here, we are raising a request from the browser for the particular web application. The server is routed to a particular web application. Now the web container creates a request servlet request response objects and as well as the thread object. Now the thread is calling invoking the service method, but here the thread is calling the service method. But how to know the thread is calling that particular service method? Here in our web application, there is a number of servlets. Maybe we are creating a many number of servlet. There is no restrictions to create a only one servlet in our web application. We can create it many number of service methods or a many number of service servlets in our web application. In this way, how to know the thread will be called in a particular service method of a servlet? In this way, for that we need to configure the servlet configurations in the web.xml. See here, the servlet configuration. The configuring a servlet is nothing but informing about to a servlet container, informing to a servlet container. At a server side, a container will take care about life cycles of a servlet. So we need to pass our servlet details to the container. Configuring a servlet is done in a mandatory file between a developer and the container called deployment descriptor file. Here, the deployment descriptor file is nothing but a web.xml file. If you, whatever the information, whatever the configurations you are mentioned in the web.xml file, all the configurations is read by the web container. When after reading the web container, we can use it that configurations in our web.xml. See here, for example, I am saying we are calling thread is invoking the service method. But in our web application, there is a many number of servlets. But how to know the thread is calling a particular service method? All these configurations we are mentioned into the web.xml file. Nothing but web deployment description file. Now, how to configure a servlet into the deployment descriptor? I can show how to configure in the deployment descriptor file, nothing but a web.xml file. To configure a servlet, there is a three names are required. The first one is alias name, the second one is fully qualified class name of a servlet, the third one is the URL pattern. There is a, whenever we are configuring the servlet, we need to know there is a three things are there. The first one is, the first one is alias name, the second one is fully qualified name, fully qualified name of the servlet, and the third one is URL pattern. The third one is the URL pattern. See here the alias name. See here the alias name is used to register a servlet class with the container, and the URL pattern, and see here the URL pattern is used to, the URL pattern is used to inform the container that for what request from the browser a servlet should be executed. To configure the above three names of the servlet, we need to following to the XML tags. We need to follow the some XML tags. Those are servlet tag and servlet mapping tag. These are the, SARV. These are the two tags we need to configure. These are the two tags we need to configure in the web.xml file while configuring our servlet. Now I can show how to configure web.xml in our file. Now this is the web.xml file. I am configuring a, this is the web.xml file. In this web.xml file, I am configuring one servlet class by using, this is the root tag of this is the root tag of your web application. This is the web app. In this web app, I am creating I am configuring the servlet by using servlet tag. In this servlet tag, I am giving some more is there. Those are servlet name. We need to give alias name of our servlet. Closing the servlet name. After servlet class, here we need to give fully qualified name. fully qualified name of servlet. After close the servlet tag. Now again servlet mapping. In this servlet mapping, we need to give two things, same thing, servlet name. In the servlet name, we need to give alias name. After that, servlet mapping. Here we need to give URL pattern of your servlet. Here, close the servlet mapping. Now close the web app. Now I can tell you how the application will be raising a request to the application. Now see, I am creating http://localhost:8080 slash servlet servlet demo slash URL pattern. This is my URL. Whenever you are requesting this URL, it will be checked into the here. After URL pattern is matched, it is coming into the alias name of that URL pattern. It is coming to the alias name of the URL pattern. After alias name is matched, it will be checked into the here. It will be checked into the here. After it is alias name is matched in the servlet, it can be it going to the servlet class of the fully classified name. It will be executed into the it will be executed in the service method of that particular class. Now whenever a request is made into the servlet, then the container identifies when the container is identifies that see here, whenever we are raising a request of a particular URL pattern, then then that container identifies a container reads the URL pattern from the request and checks whether it matches with the URL pattern configured in the web.xml or not. Now we can give it in many number of servlet configurations. It will be check any of the URL pattern is matched or not. If it is URL pattern is matched, it going to check that particular alias name of if it is matched, then the container will check whether a servlet is registered with the name alias name or not. If it is checked, it get the alias name of that servlet, and it will be checked it is matching with that alias name is configured in the servlet tag or not. If it is servlet tag is configured, if it is matched, the container identifies the servlet for a given request, and finally the container invokes the service method of the servlet. If it is the alias name is matched, if alias name is matched, then automatically it executes the particular servlet of a service method, and it returns the response to the servlet. This is the way to configure your servlet into the web.xml file. See here, now this is the flow of a servlet. Whenever you are raising a request, the request is reached to a servlet. Request is reached to the server, and the server is routed to a particular web.xml file. The web.xml file creates a request response on thread objects. The thread is invoked. It invoked the particular service method. It can be checked by using the web.xml file. Now in the web.xml file, we need to configure the service method, and as well as the servlet method, tag and the servlet mapping tag. In the servlet tag, there is a two tags are available. There is a servlet name and the servlet class, and the servlet mapping tag contains there is a two tags are available, servlet name and the servlet mapping. Whenever you are raising the request, it will be check the URL pattern in the web.xml. If the URL pattern is available, it will be checked it will be checked it registered with the alias name or not. If it will be registered automatically, it calls the particular service method of a particular servlet. It can be executed the business logic and send it response to the web container. The web container prepares the response page and send it to the server. The server will be send it into the particular client application. This is the way of servlet will be this is the way of executing the request of our servlet.
Thank you so much watching this video. Hope this lesson helpful to you. Keep watching our lessons. Keep writing to us. Do not forget subscribe our channel Sada Learning Hub because we have many sessions that would help you to develop our skills, and I will be back soon. Till then you take care. Bye bye.